Welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, we're going to talk about CGC 10s versus PSA 10s because, as many of you out there already know, it appears to be much harder to get a CGC 10 versus a PSA 10. So we're going to talk what can that mean for the long run of both companies, especially CGC, but more what's like the psychological impact to the collector not getting as many 10s. What are we going to see in the market in both the short term and the long term? We're also going to talk about AI and artificial intelligence and more or less taking out the human aspect of grading. What can that mean for the market? What can that mean for turnaround times? What can be the long lasting effects of stuff like that? What are the potential we're going to see old PSA 10s drop? Are we going to see old PSA 10s go up because it's going to be harder to get PSA 10s potentially in the future? We're not exactly sure how this AI grading is going to roll out in the long term, but this is all the topics we're going to try to cover today in today's video. As you guys just heard, there's a ton of stuff to talk about, but I think we have to just start and do one at a time. First off, to have the conversation, you really need to first look at a lot of people's lack of understanding of how grade scales really work. And that's fine because a lot of people will have a lot of cards that are not in great condition because they're not super familiar with the grading scales, or they look over stuff very easily. They don't really understand all the true grading metrics of surfaces, corners, edges, centering. They might not really be super familiar with it. And that's why I've always suggested, and I think it's one of the best investments you can ever do for yourself as a collector and investor, and that's to really get familiar with the grading scale. But I think we're going to see one of the largest polarizing events where we're really going to start to see the huge lack of understanding a lot of people have in the grading market. And I feel really bad from James from Z&G Emporium, because I'll tell you right now, when a lot of these bulk submissions come back from PSA, I could already see it now. There's going to be so many conspiracy theorists and so many people upset at him because they're going to say that he swapped out their cards and did all this stuff, because that's how unfamiliar people are going to be with the grading standard, that all the low grades are going to get back from like PSA and stuff. They're going to be so shocked that they're not going to understand that they have to wait so long and spend so much money to really get back a very low grade card. And I think that's going to be just, a different video within itself, but it's definitely something to think about. And you heard it here first. You're going to see a lot of those videos where people are going to say like, really ridiculous, really stupid, really not thought out things, like saying that Graded Gems stole their cards and the millions of submissions that they probably got are, thousands or hundreds of thousands. To get off the rails too quick, there's a couple sets that cards are just very poor to grade. And, just real quick off the top of my head, you think of like one of the real big sets that was recently released, Shining Fates. Shining Fates Baby Shinies had absolutely terrible print quality on the first run. There was tons of silvering on all these cards along the edges. It was one of the worst print runs I had ever seen for cards. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, with all those issues those Baby Shinies had, they still sent away a lot of those cards for grading. All those cards will come back at real low grades. And, just to talk about that real quick too, I did open a little bit of the first print run, but then I also got lucky and I was able to pick up some of this last print run we just had. And the packs I opened did not have that same silvering issue that the Baby Shinies had on the first print run. So if I were you guys, and if you have some sealed product from that first run and you don't plan on opening it until like a long time in the future, and you plan on keeping it sealed and potentially open it in the future and never just selling it as a sealed product, I would really consider to start swapping out your sealed product with more of the newer prints. So if you have like an older ETB of Shining Fates from the first print run and you're able to pick up another ETB at MSRP from one of these later print runs, I would definitely consider swapping out your ETBs and selling your first print runs, because I'm telling you guys right now, the print quality in the later print runs were much better. So if you want to just make your sealed product worth more for you in the future when you go to open it, I would definitely recommend swapping that out if you have the ability. Anyways, back to grading. This is not the first time we've seen this type of scenario kind of play out, and it's the way CGC grades is very reminiscent to how like Beckett grades. You're much more likely to get a Beckett 9.5 than you are a Beckett 10. And if you guys have never graded with Beckett, they're just much harder. They're very similar to CGC. Now, even with their labels, right? The only difference is CGC has two types of 10s. CGC has the pristine 10, which means not all the subgrades are 10s, but it's enough subgrades to make the card an overall grade of a 10. So that's your pristine 10. Then CGC has the perfect 10. So that means all four subgrades are all 10s, and that's the perfect 10. They don't do anything to really separate the labels at all, with the exception of just having pristine 10 and then perfect 10, where Beckett also has two different types of 10s. The only difference is both of Beckett's 10s are both considered pristine 10s. Where the difference lies is with Beckett's gold labels, all the subgrades are not 10s. And then Beckett has the black label pristine 10, where all the subgrades are 10s. And don't get me wrong, Beckett black labels have always carried a huge premium over PSA 10s because of how hard they were to get. You can submit a lot of cards over a long period and never see a BGS black label. And that's just the truth. You could potentially get real lucky and pick up a gold label pristine 10 from Beckett. You're probably more likely going to pick up a lot of 9.5s. So we're already used to seeing this sort of grading difference. But what we're seeing is a lot of people who are now going to CGC didn't really have a lot of experience with Beckett. And one of two reasons. One, for the exact reasons I said, that you are more likely to get a Beckett 9.5, which does not have a price comparable to a PSA 10. Or number two, they're newer to the hobby and they've really only ever known PSA, but because PSA backlogs have been so large, they have never actually got any cards back from PSA, if they've even submitted them in the first place. So sure, it was a very easy transition for a lot of new collectors to go to CGC, but they still, like I said, are so unfamiliar with the grading standard that they just assumed they were going to get a lot of 10s for pack fresh cards. And as all of us or most of us should know, it's not that easy to get, a 10 even out of pack fresh cards. 10s are not easy to come by. This is going to have a huge psychological impact on a lot of people because, listen, whether people understand it or not that they're not going to get 10s, they're still in the back of a lot of people's heads. They're still going to say, well, I deserve a 10 because I paid for this service. And I understand how crazy that is to say, and that it doesn't make sense that just because people pay money for a card that they expect to get a 10. Yes, that is the most ridiculous saying ever. But psychologically speaking, I know that there's a lot of people out there who do think that. And the only reason I can really say that is because I'm a decent read of character, and a lot of the CGC return videos I've been watching, as videos progress, especially on these very large, graded card submissions, you can see the person revealing cards as the video continues to go along and get further and further. You can see them getting more and more upset. And, there's a lot of psychological things that goes through people's minds when they're continuing to see 9.5s, when they're hoping to just start to see a couple 10s, and they end up not even getting one single 10. But that's what's going to happen with CGC. But where the real problem is going to lie with this in the long term is that right now, CGC 9s are not comparable price-wise to a PSA 9. I know a lot of people out there are going to want to say that they're comparable, but they're not. I've looked at a lot of, recent sales. The difference between CGC 9s and PSA 9s when it comes to strictly price, quality of the card, condition of the card, thrown out the window when it just comes to price, there's a huge difference. And A lot of people are having the conversation right now. Well, in the long term, do you potentially see a CGC 9 catching up to a PSA 9 in price? And right now, I'm going to tell you, I don't really foresee that happening in the future because of a couple reasons. One, PSA's prices now with CGC's increases are very comparable. Don't get me wrong, PSA is still closed. But I want you guys to keep something in the back of your mind and at least keep the thought of it open. PSA right now has increased their price for bulk cards to $20 per card. That price increase was a very, very finite, small amount of time between the time where they raised their prices and they completely shut their doors totally. It went up to that $20. In the meantime, since their doors have been closed and PSA has not been accepting any new submissions, CGC has increased their price to $15 per card for bulk. And then if you want subgrades, you have to tack on another $10. So if you wanted to do bulk with subgrades for CGC, it's $25. But just for the sake of this video, we're going to say $15 for CGC for bulk and $20 for PSA. I just want you guys to at least understand that this could be a potential possibility in the future. PSA could very easily separate the prices for their grading services where they still make all sports card bulk grading $20, and they could lower their price for bulk grading for Pokemon cards to $15 a card. I'll tell you right now, if when PSA opens their doors, if they decide to lower their bulk cost down to $15 and make themselves 100% compatible with CGC, where their prices are exactly the same, $15 for CGC, $15 for PSA, and PSA will pick up all the market share that they have lost. They'll pick up overnight, and you won't see anyone ever grading bulk with CGC ever again. And the big reason right now that a lot of people did move to CGC was because the prices to grade bulk was so low. And there was a lot of money to be made grading very low dollar amount cards at very cheap bulk prices. The higher those prices go, your profit margins get smaller and smaller till eventually it's not worth it to grade cards. But I'm just letting you guys know, if PSA does drop their price for bulk just for Pokemon, they don't even have to drop it for sports cards. They could just drop it for Pokemon. They drop it $5 to $15, which keep in mind that $15 is still more than they were, a few months ago. They will destroy CGC. And I've told you guys in other videos, definitely tinfoil hat type theory. If PSA wanted to destroy all their competition, all they would have to do is stop, taking on new cards, send all those cards to their competitors, destroy their competitors, absolutely crush them, make their competitors do two things. One, make their competitors raise their prices. Two, make their competitors close their doors and no longer be able to accept new submissions while you are playing catch up, and you will have the room to start accepting new submissions. So what has played out so far? One, CGC has increased their price. Two, CGC is like a month or two away from closing their doors. It could potentially be earlier before CGC stops accepting new submissions. So just think about that fact, guys. I know it's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are going to say, there's no way in hell that PSA ever lowers their prices for bulk below $20. But listen, guys, I wouldn't be surprised if they went down to 15 and became right on par with CGC, putting CGC more or less out of business. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Next, we'll just talk about the AI topic, artificial intelligence grading cards. Right now, we're already seeing it happen. CGC has been doing it. PSA just did that huge acquisition where they've almost instantly started to use that for their services. Where I can see AI really starting to be used right away is with bulk grading. I don't think you'll ever be able to take out the human grader out of the equation 100%. But I definitely think in order to rifle through bulk a lot faster, that will be the tiers you're going to see AI really go after first. Is going to be all the bulk grades. So because it's just a quick turnaround time. But you got to remember, PSA's backlog in cards is still 10 million cards. So even in a make-believe situation in a perfect world where PSA is able to grade a card every 3 seconds, it would still take them almost a year to grade 10 million cards. And that's with a big caveat of not accepting any new submissions, just to get through their current, backlog at 3 seconds per card. I guarantee you they're spending more than 3 seconds per card, whether it's through the grading process or slabbing process and everything that goes on in between. So that's just something to think about. 10 million card backlog. But, we already know that PSA is a much larger company, and they have their business model and their infrastructure they have been building for years and years and years is much larger than, say, CGC's. CGC, if they do see this type of influx, even if it's a very small percentage of what PSA has seen, CGC's catch-up time to catch up to where PSA is size-wise as a company is going to have a huge lag time, and they're really going to suffer in the meantime. And a lot of their customers, me included, probably you, when it comes to getting our cards back, we're going to hurt really bad in the long term. And I already made that video where I've said that CGC is lying about their turnaround times. And you can mark my words, you can timestamp this video right now. I guarantee you, if you had a submission accepted, this week from CGC, meaning it comes into their system as received, I would guarantee you that it's over 144 business days until you get that return back. And there's not a single person out there can make me believe otherwise. I'm telling you right now, it's way over 144 business days. That's why CGC's lying. But just so you guys know, this is going to happen. So if we start to see all these things play out, what do we have there that would have to play out? CGC, their 10s are so hard to get that a lot of collectors don't want to go with CGC. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people out there who's saying, well, we care about the quality and actual grading of the cards. There are a lot of people out there could care less. They just want PSA 10s because they want a 10 because it's the best possible grade they can get. So what could happen? You see a lot of people grading with CGC, get a shitload of 9.9s back for pack fresh cards, whether it's English or Japanese, and they're just like, I'm not sending any of my cards away to CGC because I can send the same card to PSA and get a premium because it grades a 10. And yeah, whether or not the actual condition of the card is better doesn't matter, because the psychology of people buying these cards are still going to want to go after the 10 because the 10 is the best grade. Then number 2, PSA could open their doors and lower their price to make it compatible with CGC, which would then mean CGC and PSA have the exact same price. Even at $15 for CGC and $20 for PSA, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there will look at that $5 difference and still say it's worth it to send it to PSA, just because of how the market responds to PSA graded slabs, compared to a CGC graded slab when it comes to the dollar amount. Given enough time in the future, I always believed that there was room for that that price difference to level out a little bit and the prices to get very comparable between a CGC 9 and a PSA 9. But because of the CGC price increases, everything going on over there, it's making me feel less and less confident at what's happening. So, all these series of events are going to play out. And I'm interested to see what happens. I'm interested to know what you guys think too. I know this is a hot button topic, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are diehard CGC lovers for whatever reason because of a company that only existed since July of 2020 when it comes to the trading card space. There's a lot of people out there who are just diehard. But listen, I'm just letting you know that you can make the argument that the grading scales are better for CGC, which I agree with you. They are. I've seen how their cards are graded. There's a lot of 9.5s out there that would easily cross over the PSA 10s. I agree with you 110%. But what I can't agree with you is the psychology when it comes to people. People want PSA 10s. They want CGC 10s. They want, Beckett 10s. They just want 10s. They don't want 9.5s. Whether or not you think that's true or not, I don't care if you think that's true or not. I just care about the raw numbers, what we're seeing, cards sell at. We're just seeing a huge price difference between 10s and 9.5s. That's it. That's the only argument I'm having, is just what the actual data is showing. So do I see CGC pristine 10s and CGC perfect 10s selling for more than a PSA 10? Yes. That's the big caveat right there. Did you hear what I said? Yes. I still see CGC 10s selling for more than PSA 10s. And in the future, could we see that continue? Yes, of course we can see that continue. But guess what, guys? Do you remember earlier in the video where I said we've already seen this happen with BGS? We already know that BGS is black label 10s and gold label 10s. We already know they sell for more than PSA 10s, so that's not new. So don't use that as an argument. We've already seen this happen. I'm just letting you guys know, in the long term, the only way that CGC could potentially salvage this is they're going to have to drop their prices again and make themselves so much cheaper that people are going to want to go with them opposed to PSA. Who knows if PSA really opens their doors up on July 1st? But listen, we had a direct letter from the CEO pretty recently saying they were going to do that. What's my personal opinion? I don't think there's a chance in hell that they open up bulk service grading again on July 1st. But you got to go off what PSA at least is saying. So anyways, guys, I know this was a little bit of a discussion turned into a rant, but I don't know how to have these videos without rants. But hey, listen, if you somehow listen to me rant like a maniac and you're not subscribed to this channel, I don't know what you're waiting for at this point. Hit that subscribe button. But other than that, hit the like button. Let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think? I know this is a hot button topic. But other than that, I'll catch you guys on the next video.